The key to the Bankston Fulfillment Center scenario is labor productivity. Now, first we need to get oriented with the story. The Bankston Fulfillment Center of Universal Logistics is a large warehouse that packs and ships customer orders from client online retailers. Okay. 5 employees have been nominated for a, what is the whole theme of this scenario? Productivity Award, although there is disagreement about who should receive the award. These employees, known as pickers, fill incoming orders by locating the requested items and placing them in plastic bins with computer-generated shipping labels to be transferred to a packing area where other employees put the items in cardboard boxes, add padding and seal, and arrange postage. Bankston awards bonus payments to the 2 most productive pickers each quarter based on the, interesting, total number of items the warehouse information system recorded picked during that time. Oh, now, let's hit pause right here for just a second. I know that I'm only halfway through that paragraph of information, but it's important. This problem is going to be about an argument about who is more productive than who. And before we go any further, let's just make sure that we understand how Bankston determines that right now. I have pushed the note frame up so that you see the table that's supplied with the scenario. Notice that right here, the first column, it says total items picked. The table refers to the last quarter. Essentially what Bankston is doing right now is ranking people based on this number. So you can just look for the largest number and see that, picker C right now apparently is the champion this quarter, and second place goes to picker B. I'm just looking for the largest number and the second largest number. Now, this is a productivity award, so quick review. Productivity is output over input, and there's all different statements of it, and that is a productivity measure that they're being ranked by. You might be thinking, well, wait a minute, I'm just looking at a column of numbers and I don't see what's being divided by what. Right now, the output part of the productivity, that's the total items picked during the quarter, and the input part is the quarter. So it's so many items per 1 quarter, or that number divided by 1, or that number. All right, that's where we are right now. That is not only a productivity measure that we're looking at here, it's also what we would call, quick review, a partial productivity measure, because it's output over a certain input. 1 quarter. All right, now back to the story. When we last left our heroes, at the end of this quarter, however, some employees have argued that Bankston needs to define productive more carefully, because the total number of items picked also depends on the total number of shifts an employee is assigned to work during the quarter, an amount that the employee doesn't control. Other employees point out that the warehouse information system also assigns the next order to be picked, and a picker who happens to be assigned many small orders will look less productive because that employee must walk to the packing area and back more often. Furthermore, the pickers don't control the distance they must walk between items in the warehouse, so an unlucky picker might be assigned items that are widely spaced, taking more time to gather. To settle this dispute, Bankston's gathered all the relevant data the warehouse information could provide on the top 5 pickers and disguised their names before submitting the information to the regional manager for a decision. The report looked like that was the table that we were looking at. Oh, right, this is the data that they used to give out the award right now. These other columns refer to those other issues that the pickers are saying are very important in expressing the productivity of an employee within this warehouse. All right, now we've gone through all this information and we still haven't gotten to our first question yet, because here in the note frame on the next page, there's even a little bit more information at the top. It says, please note that each shift work represents 8 hours of labor, and the total miles traveled includes all walking between items in the warehouse as well as walking to and from the packing area. So this right here is just advice on how to interpret the original table. Total shifts worked, those each represent 8 hours. 8 hours each is what I'm trying to write. And total miles traveled is basically they're telling us all walking. It takes into account whether you were given many small shipments and had to walk back and forth to packing more than other people did. All right, now this should cue us up to our actual first question or task in analyzing this scenario. Part A, calculate the labor productivity of the 5 pickers. Another quick review. We said this is all about partial productivity measures, output over a certain input, and labor productivity is a particular type of partial productivity measure where it's specifically output over labor hours. Okay, so calculate that in terms of the total items picked this quarter. Oh, so this right here is referring to the output, so calculate output over labor hours. There's another question, but maybe first let's work on that first task we've been commissioned with. Here, it's just been clipped are the 2 relevant columns from the table that we were given. There's the output, right? And here is total shifts worked, so that is in essence an input, but that's why we needed that one fact they slipped in here. Each one of these essentially needs to be multiplied by 8 in order to, let me make another column, determine the labor hours, what we divide by. So I just get out my calculator and I say 128 times 8 for picker A worked 1,024 hours. For picker B, 140 times 8 is a total of 1,120 hours. For picker C, 126 times 8 is a total of 1,008 hours. For picker D, 95 times 8 is a total of 760 hours. And for picker E, the last one, 130 shifts worked times 8 hours each is 1,040 hours. Okay, so now we at least have the numbers we need lined up to calculate actual labor productivity. Because what I want to say is, I just have to be careful, stay organized, and use the right numbers. For picker A, their labor productivity would be 119,417. I'm just copying that number there, divided by this number here. So I get that is 116.62. I am rounding, because we were dividing. Okay, what's that mean? Oh, then the picker A picked 116.62 items per labor hour. Now, as compared to, because this is all about comparison, copy this number over 127,782 and divide it by that number right there, 1120, and I get 114.09. So we're always looking for the larger number. In terms of labor productivity, we'd say that picker A was slightly more productive. Now, picker C, copy this number over 168,376 divided by that number, 1,008 labor hours, is a labor productivity of substantially more than the other two. See how it comes out higher? 167.04. But we're not done until we've considered everybody. So for picker D, 118,978 divided by 760 is 156.55. Not as good as picker C, but still actually a strong number. And then finally for picker E, 110,998, I'm copying that number, divided by 1040 was labor hours. Oops, back of the pack. 106.73. All right, so here at this point we've done that. We've calculated the labor productivity. Question, who are the top 2 performers according to this measure, and do they differ from the pair of employees who would win under Bankston's old rules? All right, well, the top 2 performers are the 2 pickers who have the 2 highest numbers for labor productivity. So this is where we go in and find those 2 numbers. And it's quite clear. It's right here in the center. That would be pickers C and D. I'll just draw a highlighted line across both their rows. Oh, okay. So the answer to that question, who would, is pickers C and D. Would win. Which, now wait a minute, is this the same pair of people that would win bonus points under the old rules? The old rules is what I was talking about when we were just interpreting the data, where they're just ranking them on these numbers. And I noticed that picker C does have the largest number of items picked this quarter overall. And so even under the old rules, picker C would win bonus. But notice under the old rules, the second highest number just for total items picked is picker B. So to answer the scenario part A, the answer is yes, they differ. Maybe I'll make that a semicolon. From old rules. Because under the old rules, it would be B and C. All right, now, part B of this problem. It says calculate labor productivity. Oh, wait a minute, I thought we just did that. In terms of the total shipments picked this quarter. Oh, okay, labor productivity is output over labor hours. What we did in part A was the output was defined as the total items. Now the output, what it's asking for is total shipments, not total items. Oh, okay, so it's a similar exercise to last time. We just have to be careful to use the correct numbers. Maybe we'll call this total shipment. Labor productivity, just to give it a different name. Productivity. What they're asking for. Here, what's been clipped is the column from the larger table that actually gave you the total shipments. And similar to last time, this is the output. So like in the case of picker A, you would copy that number and you would divide it by, it's the same labor hours. So in the case of picker A worked 1,024 labor hours last quarter. So that works out to 32.47. See, we're getting smaller numbers, but we're talking about shipments. So picker A picked, in general, 32 some odd shipments per labor hour, as opposed to picker B grabbed this number right here, 29631, and divide by the labor hours for picker B, and I get 26.46, so that's not as good as picker A. You're always looking for the larger number. Now picker C, copy this number over, 40,078, and divide by picker C. We determined worked 108 labor hours, so I get 39.76, so that's the best we've seen so far. And then picker D, copy this number over because it's the output, 35,562, divided by the labor hours, that's 760 for picker D. So I get 46.79. That is the best we've seen so far. And then finally for picker E, copy the number over, 32,345, divide by the labor hours for picker E, 1,040, and I get 31.10. Okay, so in creating that string of numbers, we have done the first part of that. But it asks the question, is the top performer according to this measure also the picker who picked the most shipments? First, we identify the top performer. You're just looking for the largest overall result, and that's the one that I commented on. So here it is, fourth in the list. That corresponds to picker D. So I would say, okay, picker D is top performer. Picker D is top performer. And is this top performer according to this measure also the one who picked the most shipments? Okay, this is the top performer according to the measure. Who picked the most shipments? You're just looking at the absolute amounts. And no, this is not the same as the picker who picked the most shipments. That would be actually picker C. And you might be thinking, well, what? Well, why? Because picker D is the most productive in terms of shipments per labor hour, whereas picker C is the most productive just in terms of the total number of shipments. If you want to look back on the data, you'll see that picker C actually worked a lot more hours. So that's probably how picker C racked up more shipments. All right, anyway, got done with that. One last section. We haven't solved Bankston's problem yet, which is to determine a better way to award these bonuses. Let's look at this section. The regional manager recommends a new system for bonus competition. Pickers will earn points from 3 categories. Labor productivity in terms of total items picked. Okay, that's what we calculated in part A. Labor productivity in terms of total shipments picked. That's actually what we just calculated. And labor productivity in terms of total miles traveled, which is also the average walking speed of the picker throughout the quarter. Okay. In each case, a picker earns 2 points for being the top performer in the category and 1 point for being the second best performer in the category. The 2 pickers who earn the 2 highest point scores overall will be awarded the bonuses. Which pickers will earn these bonuses under the new system, and is this different from the pickers who would have won under Bankston's old system? Okay, well, this certainly is going to require a lot of scratch work on Bankston's part to award each quarter, although I think you imagine that this is probably a lot easier if you have it set up in a spreadsheet. Nonetheless, we can do, in terms of scratch work, we can use a lot of our work because, let's think about it, for each of the pickers, they're going to have to figure out if they won any points for instance, total item, labor productivity, right, versus total shipment, versus total miles, the labor productivity, which is actually ironically also their walking speed in miles per hour, because across these 3 categories is what would create their score. Now, first off, what I highly recommend is that we take, like there was this in the note frame, already the outline of the table, take each one of those columns and divide it quite vividly. Because there's 2 different issues here and we don't want them to get mixed up. One issue is their actual rank and the other issue is the points. In each case, there's the issue of, for that particular category, did they rank? Were they first? Were they second? And then what the points were. So this is also true for total miles, rank, and points. Now, wait, why am I doing that? Why am I suggesting that? Because I want to set up a system that we don't make any accidental mistake. Notice that if you come in first, you get 2 points. If you come in second, you get 1 point. We don't want to mix up the first place with the 2 points or the second place with the 1 point. Well, let me show you. But why don't we use some of the work actually that we already have? Because for total items, that was part A. And what did we determine for part A? Labor productivity in terms of total items picked. We determined that the winner was C and D, right? From these numbers right here. Okay, C, picker C got first place, picker D got second place. Picker C got first place, picker D got second place. That means that picker C earns 2 points from this category and picker D earns 1 point from that category. We can do this also quickly for total shipments because we've already done the work. Okay, under total shipments, if it's calculated as labor productivity, picker D is the winner. Right here, rank, first place. And then who did come in second place? Second place goes to picker C. Picker C gets second place, which means that the points run in the opposite direction. There is 1 point for being in second place and 2 points for being in first place. And then we need to do the same thing here, and then we need to add only the red numbers, right, in order to calculate the score. Okay, but now we have some more scratch work to do though, because we never did calculate labor productivity in terms of total miles. Total miles traveled, there's the clip from the table. Same exercise as last time, just different numbers. Because for picker A, we would copy that number over. Or actually, maybe I can do it right in line. Take this number and divide it by the labor hours, right? 3,840 miles traveled divided by 1,024 miles. That is our original finding for labor hours, right, from part A. To find out that the labor productivity in terms of mile traveled is 3.75 for picker A, 3.75 miles per hour. Oh, now, was anybody any faster? Picker B, 3,080 miles traveled during the quarter. Over the course of 1,120 labor hours, we determined that part in part A. I get 2.75. This was a slower person. Picker C, 3,150 miles traveled, divided by the 1,008 labor hours that picker C worked, reveals 3.13, I'm having to round a little bit here, miles per hour. Picker D, the 2,280 miles traveled divided by considerably less time, 760 labor hours. I get 3 miles an hour. Okay, and then picker E, to determine of the 5 who is the fastest, you have to take the 3,250 miles traveled and divide it by the 1,040 labor hours that that particular person worked, and you get the same 3.13. All right, now we can see who won, right? Who's going the fastest? You're always just looking for the largest number. First place goes to picker A, who hasn't won anything so far, so that's nice. First place goes to picker A, which is to say they've earned 2 points towards the bonus point race. And then second place, oh, hey, second place, 3.13 in each case. Well, you say second place is a tie. Yeah, okay, second place is a tie. Well, it doesn't say what to do for a tie. Well, actually, there's a wide variety of ways that you could reconcile this if you were actually, administering this type of competition. My feeling is, and the easiest thing to do is just to give them both the prize. They both essentially are, let's see, who is it that's tied? Picker C is tied with picker E. They both win second place, so to speak. In my mind, the easiest, most intuitive thing to do is to give them both a point. You might say, oh, but that doesn't make any sense. They both tied, so they should have to split it. Okay, you could make them split it. They both get half a point. Notice that it wouldn't have made any difference in terms of who wins the bonus points. Because we just have to be careful we add up the right numbers now. The only thing that counts towards the overall score is what I was writing in red ink. So picker A scored 2 points towards the prize. Picker B didn't place in any of those categories, so the score is 0. Picker C picked up 2 points for total item, 1 point for total shipment, and 1 point for total miles. So that's a total of 4 points. Picker D, there's a bunch of prizes, 1 point for total shipments, 2 points, or 1 point for total items, 2 points for total shipments. And then wait a minute, picker D didn't win in the miles per hour category, so the overall score is 1 plus 2 is 3. And then picker E picked up that 1 point under the miles, labor productivity in terms of miles category. So here are the finished scores as they were described up above. This is what the regional manager is proposing we use to rank people in order to award the bonus points payments. So they asked which pickers would earn the bonuses. It's the ones with the top 2 awards. And it wouldn't have mattered how you handled the tie, whether you handed out the prize twice or whether you split it. Picker C and D would win. And is this different from the ones who would have won under the old system? Wow, that was like way back on the first page we were looking at. Right, and on the first page we were looking at, we were noting that pickers B and C would win, just based on total items picked, which is what they're doing right now. And yes, this would differ. Pickers B and C win under the old rules. So the new system is certainly good news for picker C.